Hey, I'm John Garvin, creative director at Bend Studio, and I'm here at E3.
So what were your goals heading into Days Gone?
In terms of developing the game, early on. So we started on, for the last couple of years, we've been working on the handheld. So, we did games for the PSP and games for the Vita, and then we got the opportunity to work on a PS4 game. Dude, our goal was to create something new, based on the kinds of experiences that as gamers we love, but at the same time using the power of the PS4 to create something that we couldn't do any other way.
When it comes to the zombie genre, there's been a lot of games, a lot of Hollywood adaptations. What are the challenges of creating something unique?
I think because I've heard that zombies are played out or whatever, and I think the interesting thing about that whole genre is it creates a very, very dangerous world with a lot of pressure on whoever lives in it. And so, our game is, they're not zombies, although we're never going to convince you. They're freakers, and for us, the difference is, and there's obviously, there's millions of kinds of zombies. Ours are living creatures. They're feral. They're animalistic, and what's awesome about having them in an open world is that you can, if you saw in the demo, you saw the horde. You can learn how a horde works, and you can learn, because they hibernate during the day and then they come out at night, and sometimes, they're stationary at a place like that sawmill where they find, the near death trains that come through and dump a bunch of body bags. So if they find a food source, they'll hang out there. But you could run into them just sort of randomly. So depending on the weather patterns and depending on time of day, depending on what the stimulus in the area is, their behavior will change. And that's something the player can learn. So all the freakers are that way. And there's different types, and they occupy all these niches that people used to occupy. And so that's kind of what we wanted to explore was imagine if you were going to create an ecosystem of creatures where, we're no longer at the top of the food chain. They are.
And also they seem very smart and a lot faster than the zombies or other creatures in other games.
Yeah, they can be very dangerous. Like the newt, who you saw in the demo, is a adolescent that was infected by the virus, and what happens to them is they become opportunistic hunters. So they kind of run in packs like bonobo monkeys, and they hang up on the rafters and on the rooftops, and they won't attack you unless they think they have an advantage. So if they think you're not paying attention, if you're low on health, if you're being attacked by something else, then they'll come in and they'll kind of join in. Otherwise, they'll just run away from you.
Let's talk a little about the story and what's going on in this world.
Yeah, so what we want to do is again create a really, really interesting character and make his journey just as interesting as we could. So we started, because I'm a huge fan of Sons of Anarchy. I love that culture and kind of the way they explored stories of not just the brutality of it, but the brotherhood. So Deacon St. John, his prior life as a member of an outlaw bike club. What that brings to our story is the fact that he loves the open road. He loves freedom. He hates being tied down. He hates conformity. So being in a world where there are no more laws, he in a weird way almost becomes the law because he still has a moral center. And if you watch the trailer, you can see that he has a lot of feelings of regret and loss, and not just because of everything the world has lost, but because he has a deep personal loss. And so Days Gone is a story about loss, but it's also a story about hope. Because we have a lot of stories that we're telling. You meet a lot of characters along the way, and all of them are telling very, very human stories.
What role does the motorcycle play within the gameplay landscape?
Oh, it's huge, right? So it's a big open world, and we built the world around the notion of the broken road. So, 2 years into the apocalypse, bridges are all out because they were trying to stop the hordes. Roads have eroded, and you do a lot of off-roading. So a lot of open world games, vehicles are kind of disposable, and not in our game because Deacon really, really loves this bike. It's what keeps him alive. You have to have it to be able to get away. You have to have it because it's got extra. You've seen the extended demo. You've got extra inventory on it. And so it's a very, very important part of the game.
Does gas play an issue, trying to make sure that thing is gassed up?
Yeah, you know what? We're going to be talking a lot more about the specifics of the mechanics later on, but definitely one of the things we're going for is realism. So, we have this, the big thing is, oh, hey, the world ended, huge pandemic, and there's freakers. So beyond that, we wanted to keep it as grounded and realistic as possible. So, yeah, I imagine that, there might be a little bit of that involved. I'm not saying anymore.
The other thing is, in general, and I know, again, these aren't zombies, but in general, we've seen a lot of different variations of these types of these types of scenarios. Can you talk about where you drew from inspiration?
Oh man, dude, it's like we're all geeks and nerds. We all, we love World War Z. Obviously, we've seen every zombie movie ever, and it's like, but we also love, like Cormac McCarthy's The Road. It was such a powerful experience. not because of of the apocalypse, but because of a relationship with him and his son, and him and his wife. So that was a huge inspiration, because again, it was more about the sort of the ability to explore what people are capable of, if you're starving. And I think that and honestly, the biggest thing also, the high desert. So, one of the, we get a lot of questions about, the setting of the world and why did we set it in rural Oregon? Well, we didn't. What we set it in was the high desert of the Pacific Northwest, because people think of Pacific Northwest, they think of Seattle and Starbucks and, lush rainforest and lots of rain. That's not the case. 90% of Oregon is high desert, and so is Washington, Northern California. It's like everything on the east side of the Cascade Range is a very extreme biome, because you have, it's a high plateau, you have extreme weather, it's all like formed by volcanic action over the last million years, so it just creates these really, really interesting landforms, lava tube caves, and you can be riding through a pristine forest and literally 5 minutes later be on your bike and be down in the Badlands Desert. So you get a lot of variety in a very small amount of area, and that was very inspirational to us.
In a game, for example, like Resident Evil, keeping track of how many shots you're firing, very important. In this, at least this demo, it seemed like there's a lot of different ways to blow them up, and because they come at you so quickly, you don't necessarily worry about ammo.
Yeah, well, again, it's a big game, and it spans a lot of time. So early on in the game, yeah, absolutely, ammo is very scarce. But by the time you get towards the end of the game, maybe you've been able to craft better ammo, or you've been able to find stores of it. So it'll change over time.
How open is it in terms of this scenario? We saw you end up on a tower completely surrounded by zombies, but are there different ways to go about what you just did in that demo?
Yeah, so Jeff played the demo one specific way, and you could come in and play it any way you want. So, so again, in the extended demo, you see him planting traps. And, what a smart player would do is probably come in during the day and plant those traps before he encounters the horde. So he's kind of going and sneaking around, using stealth to figure out his path, planting the traps, and then when he goes in to encounter them later on, he knows where to draw them. So, or you could just get on your bike and you could ride through and kind of kite the horde around while you throw Molotovs from the back of your bike. Or you could, it's like, again, it's completely up to the player. No, you don't have to end up on that roof. In fact, I think a smart player probably would not end up on that roof.